Hello and welcome to Building the Premier Accounting Firm. I'm your host, Roger Connect, president of Universal Accounting Center. And for more than 3 decades now, I've been in the accounting profession. 2 or more, I've actually been working with owners of bookkeeping, accounting, and tax businesses to help you build what I refer to as the premier accounting firm in your area. It's on this show that we actually invite guests, experts in their own right, to actually help us emphasize things or prioritize things that we need to be considering as we're building our firms and offering quality accounting services. It's each week that we bring on the experts so that we can dive into various topics such as marketing, selling, pricing, tech stacks, mental health, and so much more. Today's going to be an episode you do not want to miss. This is going to be a conversation I've been looking forward to for some time. This is going to be with Mark Herschberg. Mark Herschberg has actually been the author, is the author of the Career Toolkit, the Career Toolkit, Essential Skills for Success That No One Taught You. He's been educated at MIT. He's actually spent his career launching and fixing new ventures at startups, Fortune 500s, and academia. He's developed a new software for languages, or software languages, that's what I meant to say, online marketing places, new authentication systems, and tracked criminals and terrorists on the dark web. So that's quite interesting. Mark has actually helped create the Underground Practice Opportunities program at MIT, and at the same time, the Career Success Accelerator, where he's taught for 20 years. Now, Mark has also been on the board of Plant of Million Corals. So, Mark, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. It is my pleasure to be here.
Yeah, this is going to be a lot of fun. Now, one of the things that really excited me about having you on as a guest is the book that you've recently written. But before we get there, I wanted to just give my audience a little bit of background as to your experience and what it is that got you to wanting to write this book, The Career Toolkit.
Early in my career, I started running teams and I had to hire people. And I hire a lot of engineers, product managers, a lot of technical people. Now, I would ask them a technical question: how would you design the system? And I'd get usually a decent answer. But then I would ask a question like, what makes someone a good teammate? How do you see communication being used in your role? And I would get the deer in the headlights blank stare. People didn't understand this. I had realized in my own career, to get where I want to go as an executive, I needed to build these skills like leadership, networking. I'd heard about them, but no one had taught them to me. I had to develop them in myself, but then quickly realized I wanted this in the people I hired as well. These skills are not just for executives, not just for leaders, but no one had them because no one was teaching them. MIT got similar feedback where companies said, we want to see these skills, not just for MIT students, not just for engineers, not just for recent college grads, everyone, but we can't find them either. And that's what led to creating the class with MIT. And then for years, I said, well, we need to expand this because, again, it's not just our students who need this. And I couldn't get MIT to invest the time promoting it. I thought I was writing notes for the class that I would just give out. But what was supposed to be 10 pages of notes became a 200-page book. And here we are.
I love this because one of the things that I'm currently experiencing is with the growth of the company, we're hiring people. And as we go through the hiring process, we're always trying to find a culture fit. We're trying to find that skills match. We're trying to find individuals with the experience that we can then leverage to their success. But as we're going through this process, inevitably we have some fails. We misassess individuals and find the wrong individual. It's one of those things where we're hoping to screen them out before offering the position, but unbeknownst to us, they slip through, and here they are. They're not exactly those skilled individuals that we'd like. So I want to ask some questions as to the interviewing process. You've brought up the skills themselves that you develop personally and hope to find in other individuals. First of all, what are those skills that you have found to help you be successful that you'd like to find in others?
The 10 skills I talk about in the book, and these are skills that I didn't just make up. This comes from research done by universities, research done by hiring firms. Now, I have it as 10. You'll see similar lists that can range from 5 to 50, but the 10 that I bucket them into: career planning, learning to fit into the corporate culture. So that might be corporate politics, corporate culture, learning to work effectively. Interviewing, that we're going to talk to a little more, not just as a candidate, but as a hiring manager, because we never teach that. Then we have leadership, people management, process management, because people and process are both skills, but different. And then finally, we have communication, networking, negotiation, and ethics. Those are the 10 skills.
I'm loving these. Yeah, some of these 10 skills are ones that I'd like to dive into. Perhaps it's the people and process one that I'd like to start with first. The individual that is working, I feel, needs to determine whether or not they're most successful working individually, independently, or collectively with a team of individuals. Do you find there's an easy way to assess whether or not someone is an autonomous worker, somebody that can thrive on their own, or someone that is actually more prone to be successful working with a group of individuals?
There are certainly what I call personality assessments. People like to
Okay.
call them tests. There are the assessments. You've probably heard of some like Myers-Briggs,
Mhm.
HBDI, DISC, which can give some indications for people's preferences. A lot of people, if you talk to them and ask the right questions, they will reveal this. It's not something people usually try to hide.
Yeah.
Sure, a few candidates might. And it really comes down to here's where we tend to make mistakes. We're going to talk about this in different aspects as we get to hiring. Jobs are not this big atomic, you're a doctor, you're an accountant, you're a programmer. It's actually a number of tasks that come together. The doctor, for example, they spend some time talking to you and diagnosing you, but they also spend a whole bunch of time writing notes and dealing with medical billing, which they don't necessarily love. In fact, I don't know
Yep.
any doctor who likes it.
Yes.
When I think about software development, there are times where individually you're sitting at the keyboard typing out code. There are times where you're in a meeting at the whiteboard with other people designing. There are times you're in meetings just doing status reports. Those are two different types of meetings, and people might like one over the other. And so when you break it down to these individual tasks, then you start to say, well, I like these tasks. I don't like those as much. And we all know you have to do some of the other stuff. And then you can figure out, I want a job that does more of this type of work and less of that. And some others say, well, a lot of what you like is group work, or you tend to prefer the individual tasks. Okay, that tells me something about your preference.
I'm liking how you're, first of all, identifying the task element. Every job obviously has a variety of things that's needed, and they desire or need different skill sets for those. But the other part of it was identifying the fact that you as an individual need to be able to clearly identify whether or not you have that preference, but the employer has the responsibility to also in the job description define that better as well, so you can get that perfect match. Now, the next question I wanted to ask is from a hiring perspective, you brought up personality traits. There are assessments, as you mentioned, that can be used. Is there a way to, in a quick, let's say 5-minute meeting, actually assess some of these things without having them do the actual assessment?
That's pretty difficult. And you need to be pretty astute as an interviewer to get. We can talk for a moment the fact that most people are
Yeah.
not good interviewers. But it begins with the first thing you have to do as the interviewer is think about what are those traits. And here again, people often get them wrong. So one of my big pet peeves I see in so many job descriptions, and I was guilty of this myself, strong communication skills. How often do we see this? Strong communication skills. What the heck
Yeah.
does
Is it
that mean?
written? Is it
Does
verbal?
that
Yeah.
mean exactly? Do you need to stand on a TED stage and deliver that perfect TED talk versus do you need to be able to send succinct emails? Or is it that you need to be able to take ideas from your discipline and explain them to someone outside your discipline? All three of those are communication skills and they're all useful, but you probably don't need all three of those equally in your role. So, this again, you really need to break down what is that task? What is the actual action you need? You need to define that internally. Ideally, you put some of that in the job description. You will need to do 3 TED Talks a year, or you will need to be able to send succinct emails. And then you need to think about how you, as the interviewer, can assess that particular capability during the
Excellent. No, I
process.
love this because clearly each of those three communication styles are unique. They do demand a different skill set, but at the same time, understanding what you're going to be requiring of the applicant and being able to assess those in a certain way is very helpful because if they need communication styles that are written, well, then part of the interviewing process should involve some written exercise, whether it's through the application process or the interview process. But if it's maybe that TED Talk opportunity, well, how do you put them in a situation through the interview process that enables them to present publicly and speak to the group. So maybe a hiring panel or something that allows them to actually express those skills. So very good. Let's talk about the career path. I love this part because I think a lot of times in hiring individuals, I hire people that unfortunately, in my opinion, just want a job. They just want something that they can come in, do, and basically check out and walk away from. When I'm really looking for somebody that's a team player, somebody that's vested, somebody that's interested in the success of the company, someone who's willing to improve things and really put some effort into what it is that they're doing to make that job better, not just for themselves, but for the company. But they come in with this job mentality. So at a career path, at a career planning, how do you, first of all, maybe help somebody identify what their career goals are, but more importantly, at the individual level, come up with that career plan?
Now, that's obviously something during the interview process that's probably a little out of scope to
Yes.
get as detailed. So we're going to talk about when you're managing people, but you can do some assessment of this during the interview process. It begins with recognizing that we as managers and leaders have an obligation to help those who report to us create career plans, and importantly, recognize those career plans at some point will diverge from the
Hmm.
current company. This is what scares so many people. To say, hey, Roger, there may be one day I want to help you with your career, and maybe one day you'll be somewhere else, and
Hmm.
that's okay. I'm not going to be scared that you're going to leave. You're not going to be scared that I'm going to say, oh my God, he could leave. I'm just going to fire him today. We have to build that trust and have these open, honest conversations. Once you've got that trust in place, then we have talked about what is it you'd like to do. And I have on the resources that we're going to provide at the end of this episode, there'll be a resources link. There are a number of questions in the book, and you can download those for free on the resources page. It's also an app we'll tell you about later. And you can start asking these questions of yourself and thinking about, where do I want to be? What do I want to be doing in 5 years, in 10 years? Not that you know the specific title, this is what trips people up, but to think at this point, maybe I want a job that gives me more flexibility because in 10 years I'll have kids, and flexibility is more important than maximizing income. But right now it's about, how do I make the most money? Or maybe you're in the phase of, I need to develop new skills. I'm early in my career. I want to make sure I get these skills. Or these days, we're recording in 2025. I could be later in my career, but boy, I need to learn AI. And that's an important career development piece for the next 18 months. So it's thinking about where you want to go and what is the plan to get there, that the individual has to lead with support from her, his manager. And then we have these conversations and we talk about how to help move the person forward in their
No, I
career.
appreciate you bringing this up because one of the things that I'd like to highlight is the fact that as an employer, as someone who does employ individuals and sees them move on in their careers, I early on realized no one's going to be retiring necessarily from the company. So far with the business, I've had, I think, 3 retirements occur. And all the other employees have left and moved on to other things. And so it's more likely that that individual, once hired, will eventually move and leave on or move on to something else. And so I need to be ready for the fact that that will happen. And when it does occur, I shouldn't be shocked. I shouldn't be frustrated. I shouldn't be upset. I just should be welcoming to the opportunity that they're going to go on to what they see as greener and better pastures. Well, that's awesome because hopefully their time with the company enabled them to acquire new skills, new abilities, maybe a new confidence. But the hope that I have in retaining them, the loyalty that I'm hoping to instill in them to keep them around, comes from the fact that I am, like you're saying, helping them on this journey that they have for themselves. What is their vision from a career point of view? And if I'm able to see how I can further maybe give them skills, trainings, opportunities that are in line with that, they're more inclined to stick around because they see that their success is within the organization. Wouldn't you agree?
The three important things to remember, the first is what you just said. It's that people today are not just looking for a paycheck, they are looking for development. They are looking to pick up new skills. And if you can offer that, you will retain people longer. The second is that jobs are short, careers are long. And so if this particular job for this particular person doesn't work anymore at this point, that's okay. And if you take the view of, how dare you leave me, you've burned the bridge. But they might come back years later. They might say, hey, it wasn't right for me at that point and I left, but It's a good place. It's a good job. I'm going to refer business or other people because you're going to interact. You're in the same industry. You're going to cross
Oh yeah.
paths later. And finally, remember that for both sides, having some level of transparency helps. Because if your employees are afraid to ever suggest that they would be somewhere else, that means the only time you learn about their departure is the day they hand in their resignation
Yeah.
and you have to scramble. But if you can have that conversation and say, listen, I'm liking this, but I think here's where I want to go. And maybe in a year, it means I go back to grad school or I do something else. Say, great, let's talk about it. Let's work on a plan. And now you've got the heads up notice. And so you can
I
plan and
like this.
project better.
I'm going to maybe say this is a good thing for our company and our culture, but I've been fortunate enough to have individuals who have left the company, some of which I've actually fired, that have later returned to the business, who have come back and found employment again here at Universal Accounting, only because of the fact that either they found that what they were hoping for elsewhere didn't exist, or they came to realize that the culture, the compensation, the work here is actually worth doing. And so they have oftentimes come back. I can think of more than 10 individuals right now that did literally that. And I think that's quite nice. So I'm going to, for a moment, pat myself on the back, if I may. One of the things that I also wanted to dive into is I know that in your book, you distinguish between leadership and management. You just referenced it a moment ago, as well as you were speaking. Define what the difference between the two of those are.
It is very subtle. If I had to put it into one sentence, my favorite quote about this, and I'm blanking all of a sudden on who said it, so forgive me for not getting the attribution. Nobody ever managed men into
Mm.
battle. Now, that doesn't define it, but if you think about it for a second, you go, yeah, okay, that kind of makes sense. Now, in the book, I give another quote. I think the second one is from Napoleon, which is an army marches on its stomach. Because it's not to say, oh, well, yeah, you lead men into battle. So leading, that's the important one. But of course, it's the logistics that's really what makes an army effective. And that's a management task. And they're both important. So I'll go beyond the one sentence. Leadership is really about setting the vision and getting buy-in, whereas management is about the tactical organization to execute on
Those are
it.
beautiful definitions and ones I can agree with. Yeah, leadership is that visionary component. Can you inspire the individuals around you to feel like they're part of something, that they're basically contributing to a greater good? And if they can be part of that, they're feeling like they have purpose. And then all of a sudden, they're moving towards something that everybody is in agreement on. And so, from a business point of view, your ability as a leader to give that direction is very key. But the management side, it's the logistical, it's how you actually now delegate and give tasks and organize and work efficiently to achieve that is at that management level. So I like those two distinctions. Very well said. So let's go into another element of the relationship as it is for employer employee. And I want to bring in this concept of negotiations. I think negotiations takes place far more than just at the compensation level. There's a lot of things going on when it relates to negotiations, people's needs and wants. What can you tell me about negotiation?
First, to your point, it is far more than just, okay, I'm getting a job, let's negotiate my compensation. We negotiate all the time. It could be something small like meeting up with friends and negotiating where are you going to dinner. It could be holiday planning with your spouse. That's always contentious. It could be with your coworkers. Hey, here's a project, we have to divide it up. Well, we both want to do the fun part of it. No one wants to do the boring piece. And how do we negotiate who works on what? Well, you got the fun piece last time, so I should get it this time. We negotiate all the time. We just don't think of it as a formal negotiation. And in fact, most people think negotiation, it's that third party that I'm negotiating against. But it's our peers, it's our coworkers, it's our manager, it's our spouse, it's our children we negotiate with all the time. Now, here's the other thing about negotiation skills. I'm going to give an example from compensation just because this
Okay.
illustrates it so well. Imagine you are 25 years old, you have a job offer for $60,000. But instead of taking the job, you learn to negotiate. You read the chapter in my book, and it'll take you about 30 minutes. You read some articles, you did some training, whatever it was. And you say, wait, I'm not going to take this job offer as is. I'm going to negotiate. And so you spend 5 minutes, 10 minutes on a call or some emails, and you get $61,000. That's it, just $1,000 more. That's pretty reasonable. That took you just a few minutes. If you do nothing else in your career, at 25, you take this job and you stay there for the next 40 years, that one 5-minute negotiation just got you $1,000 more for the next 40 years. In 5 minutes, you just earned $40,000. Now, the reality is you're going to have more than that one job. You're going to have promotions and raises and other jobs. You're going to negotiate. You're going to negotiate and get more than $1,000. So if you learn to negotiate, not that you are the world's best negotiator, you just get a little bit better, you can literally add tens of thousands, even hundreds of thousands of dollars to your lifetime income. But now, again, we're just looking at compensation for your job, and we talked about negotiations are everywhere. And now for the employers here, because a lot of employers, red alarms go off and go, wait, if I teach them to negotiate, all of a sudden I'm giving $1,000 more to this guy, that woman, everyone. But they're not just better at negotiating their job compensation. They're better at negotiating with their coworkers. They're better at negotiating with clients, with partners, with vendors. And in fact, if they all get just that little percent better, it's going to increase the pie. It's going to help you get and retain more customers and create more value for them and get more value in your payments. There's going to be a much bigger pie that you can give them all $1,000 more. It's not a zero-sum game. And this is one of the things we teach with negotiations. It's about expanding the pie and then dividing the pie. So teach your team to negotiate. It will benefit everyone. And as an individual, learn to negotiate because it will help you.
Yeah, and I'm grateful that you brought it back to the employer's point of view, because one of the things that I wanted to address is the fact that there's really two negotiations that the employer is oftentimes involved in. One, it's the employees, it's getting them motivated, keeping them on task, it's the compromises and so forth, and it perhaps does stem from the job offer with the compensation package. But at the same time, we've got as we run our businesses, these client negotiations that we're having as we're getting engagements with our potential customers, we're offering our services and we're trying to close the deal. And oftentimes these are long-term engagements that need some negotiation. There might be a little bit of a finesse between what we're offering and what they need. And so acquiring some skills or understandings of how to negotiate helps ensure that we're going to get the best deal. And what we refer to it as, and how we address it in our book, In the Black, is it's a win relationship. There's no such thing as a good deal for only one party. A good deal is a good deal for both parties, is how we try to explain it. And so when you keep that context in mind, it's that win-win attitude. So would you want to add anything more to that?
One of the important mindset shifts that I try to instill in people when I do negotiation training for my clients, it is that win attitude, and it's remembering that they can always walk away. And so you need to give them a deal better than where they are today to make them want to stay and negotiate with you. And importantly, you need to see this other person as your negotiation partner. This is a different tact I take than many. You don't negotiate against someone, you negotiate with someone, because the two of you together are crafting a deal that you both want and find better than not having a deal. Too many people see it as, all right, Roger, you and I are on opposite sides of the table, and I'm just going to try to get the most I can, and you're going to try to get what you can, and may the best man win. And that's the wrong mindset. And when you go in saying we are partners trying to create value together, not that we're creating equal value. I still hope to gain a lot more value, not necessarily split it equally with you, but make sure you get enough value that you do want to stay in the deal, and I've taken care of my
Yeah, what I would add to
negotiation
that is that typically a negotiation stems around the fact that there's a situation going on that needs to be resolved. And we're trying to get it so that the resolution is a win-win for both parties, because the situation needs to be taken care of. It can't just be neglected or walked away from. We have to resolve this. But in doing so, there's got to be equity on both sides. We've got to feel like we both came away better because of the conclusion. And so if we can actually get in the negotiation a part where even through concessions, both parties feel as if at least the conclusion is better than the situation as it was still standing, then it's a win. So that's kind of how I would portray it. So
That
good.
is the right
So
mindset.
the
Yes.
next thing is, I know you have, and I don't know if it's referred to as an acronym as the BATNA or if it's BATNA. I don't know how you're referring to it, but tell me what that is.
BATNA. Now, this comes from the Harvard
Uh-huh.
Negotiation Project. And this is a concept they created. BATNA, it is an acronym. It stands for Best Alternative to Negotiated Agreement. And that's basically your current state of affairs. If I am trying to buy a used car from you because I need to drive to work, I come in, I think, well, I've got 3,000. I don't tell you this, but I can spend up to $3,000. Right now I'm taking the bus and it's not great because it's the winter, it's cold. I'd really like to have a car and I can go up to $3,000. More than that, I'm cutting into other savings. I'm taking out a loan, things I don't want to do. So if you offer me a deal at 1,000, 2,000, up to 3,000, say, great, this improves where I am today because now I don't have to take the bus to work. But once it crosses 3,000, where I've said that's my bottom line, is what people think of. Okay, all of a sudden, if you're saying, Mark, 4,000 is the lowest I can go, I'm going to think, yeah, I will be driving to work, but now I've got $1,000 in debt. And that's not good. I've done my budget. I shouldn't have that. And so I'm going to be in a worse situation. Part of it's better. I'm driving in a warm car, but worse financially. And the two together, it's more worse than it is better. So my BATNA is, look, I can always keep taking the bus. This works today. It's just, can I do better by spending up to $3,000
Yeah.
to buy a used car? And so everyone going into negotiation, it's important that you begin with your goal, I'd really like to do this, but also think about what's your bottom line, what's your BATNA, because if you don't know that, you can go into the deal, you can get emotional, and then I walk out and go, oh my God, I just spent $4,000 on this. I shouldn't have done that. So by having that, that's your safety check, your guardrail. And ideally, I've also thought about what might your BATNA be, because then I can know when I might be getting close to your guardrail. Because if I offer you a deal beyond that, you're going to walk away. And again, we're not going to get a deal. It's about making sure it
Yeah,
works for
it's the
both of
deal
us.
breaker, knowing where that line is and not being willing to compromise. Because I think oftentimes, as I work with my clients, as it relates to getting new client engagements, new customers, sometimes what they do in the negotiation is they compromise something that right now feels good because they got the deal, but is going to not be beneficial 6 months from now, 12 months from now, because of this continued compromise that they agreed to. They would have been better off actually saying no to the deal, and it's important to know where that line lies. Very good. All right. So the
Exactly.
last thing I wanted to do here as we start to wrap things up is I wanted to come back to, with regards to self-employment, being the entrepreneur, how does a career plan play into self-employment, that mindset?
Career plans are not about titles. Titles are a placeholder. It's a shorthand for I have this level of responsibility, director, VP, EVP, but really it's about your capabilities. And even as an individual, whether you are running a company or saying, well, I'm going to grow the company underneath me, or you just say, I'm going to be a solo practitioner, you still need to recognize that you need to evolve and grow your skills. It might be you need to get better at negotiating skills because you're working with clients. It could be you need to get better at communication or management. Even though you don't have direct reports, you're engaging with your clients and there might be some management skills or more technical skills. I don't mean technology. It could be, this is a technology example, I need to get better at AI, or it could be I need to understand marketing better so I can better market my business. But these are all things you want to develop, and your career plan is about when and how you grow your skill set to be more
Love
effective.
it. No, that's very well said. And I appreciate you ending on that. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to start wrapping some things up and I'm going to come back to you for a closing thought. But one of the things that I'm excited to offer to our listeners is what Mark has offered that you need to take advantage of. It is a brain bump. It's something that actually is for you to get the summaries or highlights of various podcasts, books, and so forth. It's for free. And it's something I'm excited to take advantage of because my time is valuable. And I want to be able to take these summaries and highlights and really get the let's say the talking points, or more important, the action items as it relates to various books and podcast episodes that I can now actually implement into my life, having not taken the time to necessarily read the entire book or listen to the entire podcast. So this is something I'm excited to take advantage of. And as an executive, it is well worth the time to get these summaries and highlights. So like me, definitely go check out the brain bump that Mark has. There you will also find information regarding the book that we've been discussing so that you can actually take advantage of it as well and get your career toolkit and really see what these things are that we've been discussing and how they apply to your situation in your business. Now, with regards to the conversation today, one of the things that I also wanted to highlight is the fact that at the beginning, we began a conversation regarding interviews. And one of the things that was brought up is Mark pointed out the difference between strong communication skills, whether or not that was communication via, let's say, written as it related to maybe an email communication, or was it maybe presentation skills, the ability to stand up and give a presentation to a group or an audience. I mean, clearly these are distinct different things, and it really augmented well that conversation between someone's abilities to thrive autonomously, working independently, or working in a team environment. Knowing these characteristics and these qualities through an interviewing process, I think, are very important. One, from an interviewer's point of view, what are we looking for? And an interviewee's point of view, where are their strong suits? One of the things that came up in that is also the personality assessments. I think those are valuable simply because they do help us identify where our strengths are. But at the same time, we then dove into a variety of things as it related to negotiation skills, understanding how to better communicate. These are all things that I feel are essential for us to be successful in our careers, and most importantly, as we're running our businesses, because clearly, at least at a negotiation level, we're always doing them. He alluded to not just doing them in work, but with our spouses and friends, just as simple as picking a place to go eat. These are all examples of how we need to have within ourselves the skills to navigate these situations and really advocate for ourselves, and more importantly, get the ideal solution. Because at the end of the day, we have to know what it is we're willing to compromise on, and more importantly, where those lines are that we're unwilling to cross, because they either compromise not only our values, but perhaps what our desired outcomes are. And so all those things, I think, were very good highlights from the conversation that we had today. So Mark, what would you add as a closing thought?
I want you to think of the following. Imagine you've got a 16-year-old kid who just got a driver's license. Would you say to the kid, okay, hey, listen, you've seen me drive before, right? You know, there's a steering wheel, a brake, a pedal. So here are the keys. Best of luck to you. That's insanity. We say, you get the concept, but let's do it together. Let's make sure you get some training and practice. And yet, if you think about our interviewing, what do? Hey, you've been interviewed before, right? Yeah, I think you're in one with me. So here are the keys. Best of luck. Go interview this other person. We literally have more training in how to drive or even how to tie our shoes than we do for skills like interviewing or negotiations or networking. We just assume, okay, you'll pick it up. And the fact is, we don't. So investing in any and all of these skills, training up your team to be better interviewers, better negotiators, better networkers, all these skills are going to have outsized returns for folks individually and for the organization.
Beautiful. I love it. And I'm regretting the fact that we didn't have time to negotiate or talk about networking. That was one of the things that I was looking forward to. So I'm glad you brought that up. It's definitely something covered in your book. So that all being said, I want to invite you as listeners, if you haven't already, subscribe to the podcast. We'd love to have you as a subscribed person following us each and every week when we release these episodes. It's here that we're having the experts on to actually address those things that you need to consider as you're running your business and building that premier accounting firm in your area. Now, as it relates relates to today's episode, I also want to invite you to universalaccounting.com. There you can actually go in the navigation and find the podcast highlights. These are episodes that we've actually selected and put into playlists based on topics. These are things that are particularly of interest to you based on your current situation. If you're needing to market, if you're wanting to understand how to sell, if you're interested in pricing, maybe it's mental health, perhaps it's hiring the right staff, training the staff. All of these things are now collected as they should be for you to binge listen if you'd like to actually go to the highlight section of the podcast at universalaccounting.com. So I encourage you to go there and check that out. I also want you to check out GrowCon. GrowCon is an annual conference. It's an event that you do not want to miss. It is an event for owners of bookkeeping, accounting, and tax businesses where we annually get together and, more importantly, visit with those experts, those individuals that have insights to share with us what we can be doing to build the premier accounting firm. It's here you also get to network with and meet your peers, those individuals that, like you, are striving and thriving in their business. And with regards to this, make not only new friendships, but also collaborations that you can use to actually better service your clients. In addition, at GrowCon, you get to meet me, my staff, those individuals who are committed to helping you be in business for yourself, but not by yourself with Universal. So go to universalaccounting.com and register now if you don't already have your ticket, and join us for this year in May, GrowCon. Now, as it relates to the podcast, I do want to point out that if you'd like more information regarding these topics and others that we've discussed, feel free to reach out to us. You can give us a phone call at 801-265-3777, or you can visit us at universalaccountingschool.com, and there find the information, the tools, the courses, the programs, the certifications designed to help you be in business for yourself, but not by yourself. It's here that we're enabling you to become the premier accounting firm in your area. So with all that being said, be safe out there, take care, and have an amazing day. And always remember this: accounting success is universal. Perfect, Mark. Thanks. Yeah, this was
Wonderful.
a great
Thank
conversation, a good discussion. So here's what I'm going to have you do. If you could now go to the chat, and in the chat, you'll see that text, and I'm going to have you record that promo piece.
Okay, give me just one moment, and then.
Yep. When you're ready.
Actually, let me scroll it up so I'm not looking down as I do this. This is Mark Herschberg. It was great to record an episode with Roger of building the premier accounting firm. We discussed hiring, negotiations, leadership management, and a number of other topics. I invite you to listen and join us.
Perfect. Well done.
I reordered some words. I can do it again if you want.
No, you're totally fine. That's perfect. So here's what's going to happen. As Brian mentioned, this went